the lecture finished and people filed out. There were two of them still at the front of the stage, and one was Penn and the other was Teller. And they shook hands because they knew one another. They had been working the streets together, Penn as a juggler and Teller as a mime doing magic. And I looked at the two of them and I said, "You guys want to go for coffee?" "Yeah, sure." I went down to the basement and grabbed a cup of coffee. And I sat there looking back and forth between the two of them. And Teller finally piped up and he said, "You're looking at us like we're specimens or something." And I said, "Yeah, well, you are. You know, I'm thinking of Laurel and Hardy. I'm thinking of others, Abbott and Costello. You two guys are so different. One big guy that talks all the time and loud, the other fellow doesn't talk at all, a little tiny guy." I said, "You guys should work together." And Penn told me, he said, "Well, we once talked about it, but never came to anything." I said, "Well, do it. Please, I think you could be very successful." And about 6 or 8 weeks later, I got a call from Penn, and he said, "Yeah, we're now the Asparagus Valley Cultural Society." They had a preacher's son who was working with them, but he dropped out rather quickly because Penn is known for rather rare language, to say the least. And he became Penn and Teller. Every one of their programs, I'm very proud to tell you, as written on the introduction page, without James Randi, there wouldn't be a Penn and Teller. So I'm singularly responsible for Penn and Teller. I bear the guilt proudly. Thank you. Some other people will be booing at this point. Folks, I'm very serious about this. The James Randi Educational Foundation, as you've seen on the screen if you watched the slideshow earlier, is dedicated to teaching people the difference between irrationality and reason. If we think about it very carefully, we are offered all kinds of carrots on the end of a stick. All kinds, all the time, by these people who will swindle us, will lie to us, will cheat us, to show you how really bad these people are. I recorded a lot of the Peter Popoff intercepts, radio intercepts, that we were able to manage. And I saved some of the tape. Because Peter Popoff started to make noises that he was going to sue us. Because we had defamed him. I never had to do it, but I knew what I was going to send him. Going to send him a little audio cassette in which Mrs. Popoff is talking to Peter Popoff over the concealed earpiece, and Popoff is screaming hallelujah, praise Jesus, the whole thing, and walking down the aisle toward a huge woman of Afro-American descent, very, very large woman, obviously suffering greatly. She was in a specially built wheelchair. And Mrs. Popoff is laughing. She says, "Popoff, this is your wife. Right down the aisle there, right at the end. It's the big black nigger in the wheelchair. Keep your hands off those tits. I know you." And she's laughing away. Now, I'm sorry if I offended you by that, but that was Peter Popoff's wife talking to him, and she's supposed to be a religious, God-fearing woman. That's the kind of thing that was going on, the kind of thing that I've had to live through. I've seen these people at their worst. And I hold on to that audio tape, and if Peter Popoff ever decides to come after me with a lawyer, I'll give him a copy of that videotape, or pardon me, audio tape, and I'll say, "Okay, see you in court." I think he'll go out the door in a big hurry. I'm serious about this, folks. Rational thinking is the only thing that is going to save us from going down the drain as a species. We're making mistakes all the time. We are accepting politicians speakers of various kinds, such as myself. I don't ask you to accept anything that I say as true. I only ask you to look into it. You can do that by going to your library and getting a copy of my book, The Faith Healers, and you'll see some of the anger that I pour out in that book. And that's not all of it, that's only a touch, believe me. But I encourage you to look it up and see, in your estimation, with your rational mind, see whether or not you think I'm telling the truth about it. I am. I promise you that. Now, as I said, this would be a very loose presentation here tonight. I would like to, I'm sure many of you have questions. I would like to try to answer those questions. I believe we have microphones set up, don't we? Are they? Where are they? Oh, they're right there. Oh, thank you very much. Glad you came. Hi, stranger. That's the brother of the man that made the recordings for me and for Peter Popoff. Good to see you, young man. Yes, we have the microphone set up. Now, if you want to come up to the front and grab one of the microphones, tapping it doesn't help. I'd be pleased to take you alternately, so just step right up to the microphone and ask your question, if you will. No, you can't be heard. Believe me, this place eats up a lot of sound. Be brave.
The microphone's on.
Is that what we're doing? Very good.
Hi, I was just wondering, what was the fault in scientific thinking or reasoning, or the faulty fact that was presented this morning on today's show? I was curious.
Oh, I've got to think of exactly what that was now. He said, it was just give me a moment to think about it. I forgot the exact reference that he had. Sorry? Do you perhaps remember what you wrote? Yeah, I did it on the computer, so I forget anything I write on the computer. It's one of those things, I look at it after and say, who wrote that? Yeah. I handled it from a different angle altogether, but he was saying, leave that with me, will you? And I'll try to come back to it, but I don't remember the exact angle, I'm sorry. Other questions? Yes, we have. Yes, sir.
We're used to seeing the stereotype of faith healer as the man in the suit who speaks in the loud Southern accent. But you've been over the world, and I'm just wondering what other kind of non-American, non-Christian faith healers have you run into that we wouldn't be familiar with?
Yes. Oh, well, thank you. That's a good question. Good question. Yes, I'm often asked that. It's just about the same all over the world. As I said, I've been to most countries all around the world, and it takes different forms. Now, I was approached some years ago by the Seoul Broadcasting System, SBS, in South Korea, and they asked me to do a series over there based upon my books and my writings, and also on the $1 Million Challenge. And I accepted that, and they sent over a whole committee of lawyers. They're very formidable people, as you can imagine. They sat in our library at our headquarters, and they discussed the whole thing with me. I signed the papers, and the translator, the official translator, a young fellow from Los Angeles, he took me aside after and said, Mr. Randi, he said, you may have to give up the $1 million. We've got people in Korea that are so psychic, they can do wonderful things. You won't believe it. And I said, well, I've made the arrangement. I've signed the paper. When I got out to Korea with my assistant at the time, we spent about 2 hours listening to some of the stories. Went back to my dressing room. I looked him straight in the eye and I said, do you think what I think? And he said, yeah, it's all the same old crap. It hasn't changed since the 1600s, when a book came out called Hocus Pocus Jr., published in the UK, the British Empire at that time. And nothing has changed. When they do it in Korea, the snack they have afterwards is kimchi instead of a hot dog. And the costumes are different, and the language is different, but it's the same old crappy old. It doesn't change at all. It's the same in every country. whether it's faith healing or magic of other kinds or talking to the dead. Oh, Sylvia Brown. Do you know who Sylvia Brown is? Oh, yeah, okay. I guess you do. Sylvia Brown, well, I've done, I don't know how many Larry King shows I did over the years, but Sylvia Brown appeared with me on the Larry King show. I was in a different location, but he was fed into the same system. And she agreed to try for the $1 million prize. And Larry King actually volunteered. He said, I'll make sure that she does. And I said, okay, I'm in good hands, so let's do it. That was 11 years ago. I haven't heard from Sylvia since, except that she was asked by a reporter about that, and she said, I don't know how to reach James Randi. She talks to the dead. She can reach them, but she can't reach me, and I'm in the phone book. And there are 1.1 million references to me on Google alone, and most of those have my address or my email address or something like that whereby I can be contacted. So I sent her, without a correct return address on it, a registered letter by the U.S. Post Office, giving her the names of all of my living relatives. Not that they had to be living, she could contact them even if they weren't. And sent her the whole thing, and I still didn't hear from her. Isn't that astonishing? I mean, and Sylvia, we call her the talons because she has these 6-inch fingernails. I'm just hoping that one of these days she's going to get carried away and scratch her eye or something and poke her brain out. There's not much to poke out there, but